and I would like to invite our last speaker this morning, Eugene Blaine. If you would, here he is. Hello, Eugene. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, very well, thank you.
So Eugene is the creator, CEO and founder of Rhino apps. So Eugene, it must be, well, I assume, is it strange, is the question, to hear real stories about people using the software that you've actually created? How does that feel?
It's very interesting, and it's very humbling, because I spent 25 years in the corporate world building systems for the big banks and pharmaceuticals and so on. And you don't often see the results of that. But when you hear real, business owners, and it's all very much at the coalface, it's all very real. It's people's jobs, it's people's livelihoods, it's people's families. Yeah, it's really nice to hear.
That's superb. So you mentioned a background in the corporate world. So I'm curious as to where your passion for championing small businesses comes from, because that has been your focus for years.
Yeah.
Where does that passion come from?
Well, I come from the same village as Gary back in Donegal, and it's all small businesses. And I served my time on a fishing boat off the west coast of Ireland. Learned a lot about business on a fishing boat. And you can apply it to this crisis, actually. If you're on a fishing boat, there aren't many people that you can rely on. You have to work yourself. You have to trust your team. And, depending on the weather, whatever, you've got to work your way through things. So I then went to London, and I built the comic relief red nose system for the BBC. That was my first project.
Just a small project then?
Yeah, well, that was
back in the day.
And interestingly enough, I had only 6 weeks to build that system back in the day. But yeah, it was good fun, and I love a challenge. And I've had so working with the large companies. All my friends run small businesses. My family, they all run small businesses, and it's fantastic. It's all very, as I said, it's all very real. So I always thought that one day that I would love to be able to help them out, because technology is technology. Once you learn technology, it's tables and fields, and it's quite boring, really. But when you put it all together, it gets quite exciting. So it's how you apply it, and that's the bit that I get a buzz out of. So once a lot of people asked me in the past if they could use my software, but it was web-based. And a lot of small businesses are mobile. So we started looking to help plumbers, electricians, and people who are out on the road. And we had a big sort of light bulb moment. One evening I was sitting in the theatre, and I don't go to the theatre a lot, but there's one evening, and during the interval, I looked down, and just the whole sea of iPhones and smartphones lit up. And I just realized, the penny dropped, that those people were holding so much computing power in their hand that if I could build a system that they could use whilst they were out and about, that'd be incredible. Right. So I just took all the experience of all the big systems that you use in a large company to look after your customers, to do estimating, to do finance, to do expense management, to do accounts or whatever. And I had this vision, if we could pull all of that together into one app and make it really affordable, that would be quite a fun thing to do. So yeah, I spent the last 5 years doing that, and it's been a very exciting journey. So there's loads of positives. It's about someone being able to, life's changing, and it's about creating a balance. And the number of small business owners that I talked to in the past, that they were snowed under with paperwork. They couldn't get an estimate out for a week. And you can't do that in sales. You can't leave a customer waiting for a week. The other very interesting one was, and I hadn't envisaged this, they didn't know what to bill the client. So a lot of small businesses struggle with getting invoices out, especially if they employ multiple people, because they've bought stuff for different jobs in different stores and so on. So it's very exciting being able to create something that's affordable. You can stick it on your phone, and it more or less runs an entire operation for a small business owner.
And it's interesting because I think until now, there's always been that expectation that big businesses have got great tech, world-class technology, because they can afford it. And that if you're running a small independent business, whether that's a florist, a butcher's, a plumber's, a wedding planners, whatever you're running, that you'll never have that amount of technological or software control because you can't afford it. Whereas what it sounds like you've done is taken what the big businesses have got access to and made it accessible to the small business person. But here's the question. So when you were creating Rhino, I guess that you didn't have some sort of forward moment in time thinking, do you know what, I imagine a time when people might need a social distancing app. No. Rhino was created for a different purpose, but then COVID-19 happened. How did you spot the opportunity to evolve what you'd already created to respond to COVID?
I think it's just, I've been very lucky to be exposed to a lot of different companies. So one of the things that I computerized about 20 years ago was a textile firm in Yorkshire, and they dyed all the cloth for Marks and Spencer's and all the different big stores. And there's some concepts, just it's controlling the flow of cloth going through the factory, and that's what makes the factory efficient. When I first got a call from Gary, and I've known Gary for quite a while, and he was distressed. Himself and his team were distressed because they had opened up as a takeaway, and crowds appeared,
right?
And they wanted to close down again. Just they didn't feel that it was a safe environment for their staff, for the customers. But also, I think, as the guys have alluded to, there's a brand thing as well, which is going to become really important going forward. Are people going to feel safe? And that's going to be really important. So I quickly knocked together a little prototype, which I pulled together a couple of pieces of technology, and it was a complete unknown. We didn't know whether it would work. We didn't know whether the public would sign up to it, whether they would cooperate. As Gary said, that's really important, and so on. But we put it live the following weekend after he closed down, and to all of our surprises, it worked. Now this is just a lightweight solution. So I spoke to Gary on the Sunday, and he said, "We're on to something here, Eugene." He said, we could keep going if we could make some improvements." So I asked Gary, what would he need? What would the ideal solution? He said, "Well, I need to be able to put my menu on there. I need to be able to change it live. I need customers to be able to go on and order. I need them to be able to input notes. I need them to be able to pay. I need that to appear in the restaurants or a chef, and so on." So yeah, he wasn't after much. He just described McDonald's ordering system. Yeah, all of their technology. So I thought that was really exciting, actually. So we had that conversation 6 o'clock in Sunday evening, but I love a challenge. So I don't know if Gary knows this, but I was up till 4 a.m. the next morning sketching out exactly how all of this would work. And I've got my development team based in Vietnam, and they start work at 4 in the morning. We didn't miss a minute. They were on it straight away. And what we're doing is we're adding, essentially, in technology terms, we're adding an e-commerce site onto it.
Because e-commerce sites are traditionally expensive.
Yeah.
They take time to create.
Yeah.
They're not always as agile and as flexible that the owner can adapt to changes in either menus or availability in the moment.
Yeah.
How have you managed to get over those challenges with your app?
We've spent 5 years building up the technology, and it's very clever technology. So we were easily able to modify it. But it's not just about technology, it's about thinking in the same way that the guys have all described approaching this new challenge. Technology good technology, it's not just about the technology, it's about how it's used.
Yeah.
So designing something, and the design, which is why it didn't take 5 minutes, designing it so that it would work in a really user-friendly way was the key, but also designing it so it'll scale. So one of the key design objectives is I have this vision of, it's not just about restaurants or pubs. It's about the local flower shop. It's about the local butchers. It's about the local craft shop. Yeah. All of them should be able to get online quickly. All of them should be able to trade. Yeah. And
in the same respect, they're putting pictures on of their product rather than the food, and allowing people to either collect or have their products delivered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And as you're doing this, as you're on this journey, you sort of start thinking then, why are people using, I always question things, why are people using Amazon? And you use Amazon if you're selling things to reach an audience, yeah? But there's a lot of people trying to reach that audience. But the convenience of Amazon from a consumer is that you can order 24 hours a day. You can just, 12 o'clock at night and you feel like buying something and so on. So it facilitates trade. It makes trade really easy. But what I did see, out of something bad must come something good. And what I did see is a resurgence in community values.
Right.
So there's now, people want to support their local businesses. I think there's a new appreciation of it. And I think the ultimate vision behind Rhino is to build something where any business can go online, it's affordable. We're not going to charge you commission because that's like a tax. Yeah. So that's a tax on your business. So we're not going down that route. We're doing a flat fee. It's highly affordable. It's built to scale. And that means we can hopefully get communities onto the app and increase the actual amount of trade within communities.
Because I have to say, I was curious because you're describing, I can hear how the apps had an impact in the olive tree and the boathouse and Bugatti's, and you're describing the degree of technology that is behind it and the flexibility and the agility of it. Yet you're offering it at an incredibly either subsidized or generous rate. How are you intending to keep that like that? Why are you supporting small businesses in that way?
I think there's two reasons. One is I think small businesses, there's a couple of reasons why they won't adopt technology. One of them is they're afraid of technology. Another one is the cost of technology. It's not just the actual cost of licenses, it's the cost of adopting it and the hassle of adopting it. So we've done a couple of things. In terms of the license cost, we've taken that off the table. Working with the Federation of Small Business, they've encouraged us and so on, especially during this crisis, to produce a free 100 edition. And the free 100 edition allows any small business to start using the app for free. And you can have the first 100 invoices or the first 100 orders, first 100 expenses, all free of charge. Yeah.
So if I was a coffee shop owner listening to this, or a small retailer or florist, I could, from what you're saying, if I've understood you correctly, download and onboard my business onto the app, and actually I would incur no cost for that until I had got my 101 order or 101.
Correct. So that might suit a small craft shop. It might do them 6 months. If you're selling paintings or whatever, it might do you a year and so on. If you're a busy restaurant, it might last you 1 weekend. But it's about getting people back, and it's also, we're in a difficult time, and I am very passionate about small businesses. It's actually amazing being on this webinar with so many innovators, the professionalism that they've approached this with, and that's what we try and do in our trade as well.
And does your vision for the long-term impact of the app stop at uniting retailers and hospitality with their customers, or has the potential of the app got a further reach?
Yeah, well, sitting behind, I don't know whether Gary and Peter and Patty realize this, but when a customer places an order, it automatically logs that customer details. Now that's really useful for two reasons. The first reason is the business is building up a client database, something that most small businesses don't have. The second thing that it does is there's one little button now that you can switch, and it'll start every time you take an order, it'll create an invoice in the background. So now it's starting to do all of your accounting for you. Yeah. So the e-commerce side that we've built on, that's what we're asking people to use. And we always encourage people to take baby steps, but it's future proof in that you can start using all of the other features to do your VAT returns and so on. But we're not going down that route just yet. We're not telling customers about that yet, but that is already there. Customers are already doing their VAT returns. They're already doing all of their accounts and everything using Rhino. But we need to focus on the challenge in front of us. And the challenge at the moment, as the guys have highlighted, is very specific. And that's where we want to focus our help. But the other key thing is that the new, the UK government have come out with a tracking app and so on. The interesting thing about the Rhino app is if you do collections, if you do deliveries, but also our plan is to do an at-table service. Mm-hmm. This is where you can reserve your table. And it's also where you can place orders, okay? And all of this is channeled into the kitchen, okay? We've got some very exciting ideas about what we could do in the kitchen as well. But one of the key things is by taking the contact name of the person placing the order, we now essentially have contract tracing built into the app. And all of this is GDPR compliant already because the app is GDPR compliant. So this means that if anything did happen, you could pinpoint back to a particular time in the restaurant. You could identify everyone else who's in the restaurant, yeah, and you can start the tracing process. So we're there already, which is great news.
So much potential for the app beyond
Absolutely.
what it's being used for on a day-to-day basis. And I'm conscious that our audience today are those who are either trading but need to bring in greater efficiencies because it's time consuming or laborious how they're managing to trade, or it's people who want to get those doors reopened for the first time. What advice would you give them as we finish this slot together, Eugene? What advice would you give small businesses that are worried about adopting new tech or embracing changes like this?
It's interesting. I would say, having been in technology for 30 years, if I wasn't in the business, I would also be nervous of it, because there's two different types of app on the market. There's the heavy duty, very expensive, normally, it'll be supplied by a really big company and so on, very expensive. But then it's very easy to knock up a little app that does one function, but would you actually try and expand the use of it? It isn't there, it's not versatile, it probably doesn't scale, it may not be secure and so on. So I totally appreciate, and I actually have huge respect for businesses that have been reluctant to adopt technology. But our little mission is to take the technology off the table, get our customers to do the talking for us. We don't advertise. We simply get our customers to use our technology, and then we invite them to comment on it. And that way you're letting your product do the talking for you. So it's really good.
Thank you. And so as a final comment, if somebody wanted to let the product do the talking, how do they get their hands on Rhino for a trial? How do they find out about it? Where do you want to direct people to?
So there's a number of places. You can go onto our website, is probably the best. That's www.rhinoapps.com. That's Rhino as in the animal, rhinoapps.com. On that website, you'll see case studies. There's also tutorials, and the pricing is transparent. And also, you can also sign directly up from there. Now, you can actually get yourself up and running on the app. It's designed, you can actually click and you can register and you can go through the process and you can get yourself up and running. Alternatively, if you just want to chat about it, then you can email us inquiries@rhinoapps.com.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Eugene. So we have run out of time. There's so much more that I'd love to know, but our webinar doesn't allow for that this morning. So I'm going to just say a huge thank you and ask you to turn your camera and your microphone off. Thank you very much.